Hey everybody. So today is just a quick video and I just wanted to follow up on some of the comments that I made at the end of the last video, at the end of the what sold. And I just kind of got talking about the feelings of being unproductive or not getting enough done, not getting enough listed. And I had, I looked through the comments that you guys left, and I also took some time to really think about maybe like narrowing down what my actual problem is. Like, is the problem that I'm trying to do too much, or is the problem that I'm not using the time I have the most efficient and most productive way possible? And so I also saw a suggestion in there, or a request from Retro Band CT. I always think of Connecticut when I read that name. But anyway, you had asked, would it be possible if we did like a listing challenge? And so I thought maybe we could kind of combine all of these thoughts and kind of combine it with a listing challenge. So kind of like a productivity hack or strategy listing challenge. There are things that I have done in the past, certain strategies and things that I have done to make myself a little bit more productive, to better use my time. And then I end up getting away from those things. I've also heard, things other resellers do. Sometimes it's things even Mr. Pish Posh does that I don't do. And so I just thought if I could kind of like narrow this all down, kind of let's focus in on what some of these things are that we could do, that I could do, and I would make that part of a challenge. And if you guys feel like you would like to join me on this productivity challenge, then please feel free. But we'll talk more at the end about kind of exactly maybe what we're gonna do with the challenge and how it'll go. But first of all, I had just wanted to talk about some of the things I had narrowed down, what it was that I am personally struggling with, like that I personally feel like I need to improve on. And one of the first things that I had thought about was just being better about using smaller chunks of time. So in one of the comments I was replied to in the last video, and I realized I do this. Okay. So, I might have a day, like 1 or 2 days a week where I'm like, okay, I'm going to be home today. It doesn't happen that often. So, okay, maybe 1 day a week. I'm going to be home today. And so I'm going to get a bunch of stuff done. Right. Well, I kind of start that day and it's too big. Like it's too, I feel like I need to get it all done because I have this huge like chunk of time, and I want to list here and I want to list in this, and this category I haven't listed flatware in a while. I need to list flatware. I need to list this, and I start to overwhelm myself, right? And so then I just end up grabbing like 10 things and I get them listed, and I'm like, okay, but now I have the rest of the week where my life is busy. I need to be better about finding little chunks of time, and then not just finding those little chunks of time, but being more efficient in those chunks of time so that more actually gets done. Okay. So in line with that, maybe I need to be better. Some of this is just going to require more self-discipline. Not my favorite thing. But using my evenings a little bit better. It gets dark so early here now. It can feel like evening for a really long time. And a lot of times I just my brain just shuts down. I crash, and, I'm just kind of not getting a whole lot done after dinner. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's, I'm not a big proponent of we need to go 24/7, the whole hustle culture. If it works for you, that's great. But I don't need to sleep, eat, and breathe, reselling. So, or work or things like that. Right. So I was just thinking, but there are times in the evenings, or even like getting as my plan kind of comes together and I maybe get some things done earlier in the day, I can save maybe some of the tasks that are just kind of sit on the couch and work off my laptop, or, you know, things like that that don't require as much from me, but I'm still kind of working towards that goal. So doing better about using my evenings, even possibly I tend to get up earlier than the rest of the family most days. And so, you know, maybe don't sit there and drink my coffee and scroll social media, you know, for that long of a time, but, you know, maybe actually get up and kind of get the ball rolling, especially if I do have somewhere to go that day. I could get a little bit done before I head out. Then a lot of the plans that I was looking at or thinking about and these productivity hacks would require a little bit of preparation ahead of time. So another weakness of mine, we are not the most structured, schedule following kind of family. We don't, you know, like this day we do this, and this day at this time, like every day at this time we do this. We're more of kind of a loosey-goosey, everybody kind of does, you know, I mean, there's certain things obviously that have to get done certain days, and so we'll do that, but everything else kind of just, you know, goes with the flow, right? So what I was thinking was, you know, I need to spend some time thinking about the upcoming week and what it is I want to get accomplished. Sorry, I'm about to sneeze. So let's talk strategies for now, okay? Let's talk about some of these things that we can implement. Maybe some of these will help you. Maybe some of these are things that you've already done, have been doing, have a habit of doing them. And then also just leave comments, you know, leave as many comments down below of any other strategies or hacks or things that have helped you to stay focused and to be productive and getting some things listed. Now, this first one that I want to talk about is just something that I think my whole life I've kind of done this to a certain degree, is that making lists and then checking things off, right? So, or even just like making a goal and then being able to put a tally mark, like eBay 10 listings, tally, you know, and make your little hatch marks or whatever like that. So I always find that very satisfying. I'm sure there's a name or a diagnosis or whatever, you know, some little dopamine hit that you get from making a checklist or checking something off, but it always seems very, very satisfying to be able to do that. And it kind of gives you an overall sense of like how much is getting done and how much is being accomplished. So I kind of started with that one. It's a visual reminder of what you're doing. And so I kind of was thinking about the type of checklist that I wanted to do, the kind of challenge, and I had sketched something out, and then I was looking at certain, I don't know, printables and free printables online, and because I'm cheap and I'm lazy, I didn't feel like making my own. So I decided to modify something I found online. And at first I had just kind of sketched out something on paper, but then I realized like that a meal planner page would work for me because it's the days of the week are across the top. Now this is actually for a whole month, but I would just use this for like 1 week's worth of things. And then it has my list down the side of the different tasks or different categories or different niches that I need to make sure I list from throughout the week. And then at the bottom, there's a few different tasks. So I've kind of broken it up. I hope I can explain this if you guys can follow how my brain works. But I was thinking I would do like eBay clothing as one category, then eBay hard goods as something separate, then flatware, and then patterns, jewelry, Ruby Lane, and then cross-listing and then delisting and relisting as a couple tasks that I want to do a little bit of every day. So these are things that, you know, I probably will not hit every single one of these every day, but as I do my little tally mark, so say on a Monday I list 4 pieces of eBay clothing, I just do my little hatch mark, my little lines, right? If I do some hard goods, kind of add that in. than flatware. And you know, technically, like if I have jewelry is going to cross over with, like, a lot of my jewelry gets listed on Ruby Lane, but I do have jewelry that's not vintage, and so that'll go on eBay and could technically be considered a hard good. But all of that I can kind of keep track in my mind, that I know that, you know, certain things are getting listed. If they're getting listed here and I don't hit the hard goods one that day, it's okay, because I did it in another one of the categories. But Ruby Lane and Patterns, those are actually two independent shops. So my pattern shop is on Etsy. My Ruby Lane pattern shop is by itself. I don't cross list any of the eBay stuff onto Ruby Lane. So those are kind of more about the algorithms. And besides the fact I have a backlog of patterns and I've got a bunch of vintage to get listed, the more consistently I can do things on those two sites, then those sites will sell better and I will move more of that product, right? But sometimes I tend to get caught up, oh, I've got free time, and I list a bunch of clothing because I see it. It's like hanging here, or some hard good is like right in front of me, so I just do that, right? And so I tend to realize, like, oh man, a whole week went by and I didn't list a pattern or a whole, you know what I mean? And then, so those are the different categories. Flatware, mostly because I don't want you guys to think I'm a fraud. I was like, oh, I'll list enough flatware. I'm talking about flatware on Fridays. And then I end up not, like, if I don't list it, don't sell it, you're going to be like, why should I listen to you? Anyway, okay. So then the couple tasks I have at the bottom are cross-listing. Now, the only thing I have to do with that, especially I think, is if I get more efficient, like say I list some clothing or hard goods on eBay, and that's generally kind of where I start my listings, or even on Vendoo, you know, even if you're just making one listing, your starter listing. And sometimes I go right ahead and then I cross post immediately to Poshmark or to Depop or whatever, like right after I make the listing. But I could just wait till, like I said, I could wait till evening and just sit down and cross list at that point, right? When I'm not feeling like doing much of anything else. Cross listing super easy. Vendoo makes it super easy. And then the other thing is Mr. Pish Posh does some of these listings, and then he was cross listing, but I think I'm a little too anal about hashtags. And I'm always criticizing his hashtags. And so I'm like, can you just let me do the cross listing? Anyway, so, you know, should we put that in our list of things to do, is letting go of control? Okay. So cross listing, sometimes I just sit down and see what he's gotten listed for the day. And then I send it out to Depop or Poshmark at that point. Not so much Mercari anymore. I don't know if I told you guys, but they did kick us off. They closed our account, but it's just dumb. And it wasn't a huge loss because Mercari wasn't making us hardly anything anyway. Okay. And then delist, relist. So we really have found a lot of success if we take some stale listings in our eBay shop or in our Poshmark stores, and right in Vendoo, we can delist them, make whatever changes we want to make. Sometimes our prices are too high, we admit it, and just kind of tweak the listings, find mistakes or things like that, and then launch them again as new listings. And a lot of times right away, you start getting fresh eyes, you get new watchers, different things like that. So keeping up with doing that very consistently can also help with sales and from keeping your stores from getting too stale. But it kind of, you need to set aside a little time to do that every day or every few days if necessary. And again, I understand, I appreciate the fact that I also have Mr. Pish Posh to be doing that, and he'll do some of that when he doesn't feel like doing much of anything else. He'll just kind of move some photos around, just kind of do different things to make it more of a fresh listing. And so there's kind of both of us kind of working on some of these things. So that's my idea. I mean, it's got Saturdays and Sundays in it, but I think I'm just going to be focused on what I get done Monday through Friday and using my Saturdays and Sundays for a lot of the prep work for the week that needs to be done, and for catch up, you know, if there's time on the weekend for work, then I can catch up. You know, there's also, I don't have to say that. I mean, there's life that happens in the meantime. YouTube, I do make YouTube videos, as you know. So I said before that I'm like in the evening, sometimes just like vegging on the couch, but sometimes I am editing videos as well. So there are lots of balls to juggle in our lives. And so I'm hoping something like this, what I'm hoping this will accomplish is not only the satisfaction of making the check marks, but also seeing where the holes are, like seeing which ones are maybe harder to get to, or what does it take to really get, you know, maybe I am spread too thin, right? Maybe maybe the pattern shop is not worth it, right? Like maybe it's not worth trying to keep a pattern shop alive, even though I've got such a big backlog. So should I give up on that pattern shop and liquidate? Or, you know, I've tried selling some patterns on eBay and they just sell for much less and for lower amounts, but maybe that's not such a bad thing. I don't know. Anyway, I'm hoping this will give me some data as far as what's kind of doable in any particular week. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's my little thing I hodgepodge together, and maybe I'll make my own at some point, but for now, for the first week, I can just work off of that. It's totally fine. Okay, so then the second strategy that I think is going to help me, especially when I was talking about the fact that I tend to overwhelm myself, is that I want to take something like this and I want to, at the beginning of the week, put in it what I want to get listed that week, right? So obviously sometimes there's like big things that wouldn't fit in here, but we let Mr. Pish Posh handle those. But, you know, put in my 20 patterns, put in my 20 pieces of jewelry, put in my, you know, bags of flatware that I want to get listed that week, some clothing, whatever. And say, okay, you know what? This is all you have to worry about this week. So I call this controlling the overwhelm. Because that's, I don't know, did I say this already in the video? When I have that big open space of time and I want to list, like I want to list everything. I want to make a video and I want to do it all because I'm like, I've got this huge stretch of time. I think I said this already. But anyway, so what I'm hoping is that I can fill this and then this is my focus, right? So it kind of like contains it and it gives you a goal, and it's not just like everywhere I look, I see inventory that needs to be listed and then I can shut myself down. I've done it, right? Where I'm like, oh, I don't want to do anything. I'm going to go lay down, right? So controlling the overwhelm, just telling myself, this is all I have to worry about this week. Okay, does that make sense? Have you guys ever done something like that? Do you just kind of set up what needs to get listed and like just work off of this? I have done this in the past and I think it's pretty successful. I think I have been successful at it. And hey, if you get it emptied, you just fill it right back up again, right? Before the week is out. But the key will be not to overfill it. I need to be very reasonable in what I am expecting myself to do. Okay. Then the next strategy, the third one that I was thinking about, is something that I do struggle with. I will admit this. And that is, a lot of resellers talk about, like, if you want to be productive, you want to get a lot of listings out, you have to list like things together. Like, you have coffee mugs to list, you do 20 coffee mugs at once. If you have, you know, sweaters, you get 20 sweaters and pull them all together. And you can get yourself into a flow, like, you know, coffee mugs just sell similar, one right after the other or something like that. Not my favorite way to do it, but I think mostly because I get bored way too easily, and it starts to feel more like drudgery. It starts to feel like I can't list another coffee mug, right? So I'm trying to do this a little bit more. I think will be part of my challenge, but I think I'll limit it to like 5 items. Like if I had 5 necklaces, you know, if I'm going to do jewelry, do like 5 necklaces or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Someone else commented in the last video about not being able to do like you'd go crazy, like listing 25 of the same things one after the other. I mean, we can't escape the fact that reselling is work. Okay. So sometimes we have to do the hard things and we have to sit down and do the stuff we don't like to do. Right. So, okay, that's one of my challenges. The other 2 are things that I've done in the past and I kind of like them. And this is going to be one of my harder challenges, is to do things in an efficient way. Okay, this 4th one that I was thinking of is kind of related. And this is probably the hardest thing for me, and that's time blocking. I think of it as kind of that same thing where if you picked like 10 mugs and doing it all together. In this case, it's like saying, okay, for 30 minutes, all I'm going to do is take photos. For an hour, all I'm going to do is take pictures of clothing. For an hour, I'm just going to spend time prepping my items. You know, whether you have to take stickers off or stain treat or, you know, clean or whatever. So it's the same kind of issue that I have, is like, I don't want to do the same thing for an hour, right? I don't want to do the same thing for half an hour. So it is an efficient way to do things. And I recognize that. And Mr. Pish Posh and I have talked about this because he's more of a task lumper and a time blocking type person. It's the way it works. He says it works best for him. He'll gather up the 20 mugs or the 10 mugs and he'll go out there and he'll just take pictures of all of them. Or we have the boys help us with certain things. So they help with measurements of clothing and recording those measurements. So then he might go out after dinner and spend an hour taking pictures of all that clothing. And then he's just like, you know, sitting there in bed before he goes to sleep and he'll list, you know, he doesn't have to be out with the clothing. He's got all the information ahead of time. And he actually, we know Mr. Pish Posh slams the listings out, right? He gets way more done. So I am going to try to do it his way. My excuse earlier on this was like, I come down to my eBay room and I like to do my listing from start to finish. I like to take my photos, do my measurements, sit down, do the listing, publish it. Get up, grab something else, do that. And I might go from like a piece of clothing to some flatware to a vintage item to, you know, I kind of bounce all over the place. And I told Mr. Pish Posh, but it gets me out of my chair. I'm like, it's exercise, right? I get up and down and up and down and up and down. Okay, that's probably not a good enough reason. But that is something I'm going to add to my challenge. So I've got 2 things that are kind of easy and 2 things that are hard for me is doing that, right? Because like I said at the beginning, like I need to spend more time thinking ahead. So getting my laundry basket. So then maybe when I start work that week, I've got my laundry basket and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to start taking pictures of everything, right? And then think of how much I could get possibly listed that whole week with a few minutes here and there. This is like an epiphany. But we're going to see how well I follow through on this, okay? And so with the time blocking, you know, productivity hacks always, you know, we always hear about setting a timer, things like that, where, you know, if it's a job that you're not really like loving, just give it 15 minutes. Like it's amazing what you can get done in that little chunk of time, as long as you know, they say turn off your notifications, turn off all those things for that chunk of time. Just sit there and that's what you're doing for that chunk of time. Okay. And then I think I'm going to add in number 5. I was thinking about it as we were sitting here talking together. And I say number 5 is to stop overthinking. So sometimes I tend to do that. I want, like maybe in my Ruby Lane shop, I like to list certain like things together at the same time. And I put things off because I'm like, well, I want to list this, but I want to list this at the same time, but I don't know where it is. I got to go find it. And you know what? Just list it. Just sit down and list it, right? Okay. So stop overthinking. Easier said than done. Okay. So let's talk about what the plan is going to be, the challenge that I have kind of set for myself. I've been doing a lot of talking, and so it's time to let's talk about the plan, and then I will let you go. So what I was thinking, I would just do a 3-week challenge starting on Monday, November 18th. I wanted to get this video out to you early enough that you could have some time to think about what you wanted to do for your challenge. And then, like we said, I have to spend the next few days and this weekend gathering up what it is that I want to get listed in the next week. Okay. And so we've got some time to kind of prepare and think about it. And so then just go 3 weeks until like December 8th. I know people's lives start to get really busy with holidays and things like that and family. So, if you can participate, fine. If not, if you just kind of want to follow along, I do plan on making follow-up videos showing me doing the things I'm talking about here. Okay. So if you just want to follow along, that would be fine. I debated adding an actual number of listing goal, and I might do that later in the challenge. Like I might spend this week seeing what actually is possible, getting what I actually can accomplish. And then maybe for the next 2 weeks, try to maybe bump it up a little bit. Well, can I get more efficient? Where are the holes in my plan and in my schedule, and how do I fix that? So kind of reevaluating. And I'm going to take you guys along with me as I do that. I'm going to try to share the evaluations with you. By the end of the first week, let's take a look at this and see, what I was able to actually get done. Okay. So if you want to start off right ahead, if you have an idea of you want to get 10 things listed, in each category, or you're like, you know what, I need 10 listings a day, 5 days a week. So I want to get 50 things listed this week, because I know a lot of you are dealing with a different type of schedule than I am. And so, anyway, you notice I didn't say anything about thrifting. This challenge has nothing to do with thrifting, but hopefully we can make a dent in some of our profit piles that we have at home, and hopefully sales will be rewarded with all of our hard work by many, many sales. I wish that for all of you. Okay, so I've said it a few times, but leave a comment down below if you plan on joining the challenge. If you're already super uber productive, then you go to town and just let us know. Maybe you have a listing goal that you want to do for the next 3 weeks, and you can check in with us as well. I hope you guys are doing great and we'll have a wonderful weekend. I'll probably have another video or two coming out sometime soon, and we will talk to you later.